All right, everyone. Go ahead and get started, and hopefully we'll have the rest of these people filter in. I see the numbers still going up, so I really appreciate you guys attending today. I hope everyone had a successful 2023 season. I'm sure everyone's wrapped up by now or wrapping it up, and yeah, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and listen to me. My name is Brian Marr. I'm the Vice President of the Turf and Ornamental Division at Holganix, and I have been with Holganix for about 8 years now, and kind of still feel my way around the whole webinar thing. So I brought some backup, and that is Rob McCoy. Can you hear me, Rob?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. I think we're always figuring our way out around the webinars, but happy to have everyone join us today, and appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules.
Awesome. So what we're going to go over today is, kind of designing your 2024 program. We're trying to get a little bit ahead of the curve. Do this a little bit earlier as opposed to wait till the last minute. So it's a step-by-step tutorial, but we have to include some disclaimers. We're going to make a lot of assumptions here. There's a lot of variables. I'm probably going to overuse that word, variables within what we're going to be talking about, and that includes your normal weather patterns, and then the crazy weather patterns that we've had. This spring California got dumped on. We are going to take it region by region. We have a lot of experience across the entire U.S. Putting together, programs, but we have to take into consideration those variables that a lot of different regions deal with. Applications are done correctly. We want to make sure we're going to have to go over, previous stuff that was going, soil testing. Kind of give you some directions, some tips on how to utilize soil tests to benefit you the most. To really get a high level overview on what is going on, not only in your region but on your routes. On a case by case. Again, it's not specific to your region, but a lot of this that we go over can and will apply. Keep in mind we don't have any clue right now what equipment you're utilizing, whether you're spraying liquids, granular, walking, riding. So a lot of assumptions, but we're going to do our best to get through this. And as always, we're here for you. So if there's any questions or help that we can offer you, you're more than happy to reach out to me, and I would be thrilled to work with you guys. If you want to build a Holganix program, I believe in the chat box. I know after the meeting we're going to send a follow-up email that'll have my information on it to contact myself, and I can direct you to the appropriate person to help you if it wouldn't be me. And then also at the end of this video, we're going to have my contact info. Rob, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we should just jump right into it.
Okay, cool. So the overview, we're gonna just go over reviewing 2023 results, how to see what we did right and what worked, and what we can correct and do differently to get better results, to work within budget constraints, a big thing. Go over the lawn care process, which is going to be scheduling meetings, pulling up cancels, just a whole lot of good stuff in there. Finally, designing your 2024 lawn care fertilization program. We're going to give you some helpful tips and advice to formulate something for 2024 that hopefully will give you some knowledge based around biologicals and the importance of including them into a lawn care fertilization program. We're going to go ahead and start with reviewing your 2023 results. So what worked and what did not work in the 2023 season. Weather. Weather can play a huge role in everything that we do. Rob, you want to jump in, maybe talk about crabgrass, pre-emergence, how all of that plays a role into what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that sometimes you look at weather conditions are always going to change from year to year, and you don't really know what you're going to be dealing with. One of the important factors is you can start with a plan. Do you have a plan B? Do you have a plan C? When I think about application to application within a program, you have to be prepared to make adjustments. Were you prepared correctly, or were you locked into a program a little too much, and that kind of showed you what wasn't working during the season? That's, if you can't adjust, it's really difficult to be right. I can tell you that in all the hundreds of programs that I've written, adjustments have to be made every single time for weather conditions, and that could be the amount of rain that you're getting, could be the heat that you're getting, just how army worms come in, whatever it may be. Everybody deals with different circumstances in different parts of the country, so it's challenging. But I would encourage everyone, if you didn't do it in this past season, make sure that you're identifying that as soon as you come to the end of a round and you're in that process of, hey, are we good to go for the next round with the way that we had it set up? Record what you saw and what you're seeing right then from the previous application, possibly even from the previous 2 applications, because there's always going to be a lag effect. And if you don't take the time to log everything, then you may not be equipped right now to make the proper adjustments. And then you're going to be kicking yourself in, when you're 4 weeks into the season already, and you're like, yeah, I remember that happened last year too. Why are we doing the same thing? So I would encourage everybody to keep a log on what worked, what didn't work, application by application, and as the season changes.
Yeah, very, very important. And I think what plays a role into that is going to be, did you conduct soil tests? Or, how well are you, paying attention to what's actively going on during your season? And soil tests play a big role in that. There's a lot of variations there. You go to a new development, where they go in, strip the soil, leave you with nothing. And soil tests would be very, very important in that case. Older houses, older homes that have been established, 50, 60, plus years, they're probably going to have better soil. I'm not saying that soil tests aren't necessary, but it's definitely probably not going to be on high of a level of importance than those newer developments and poor soil conditions.
Yeah, and Brian, I would also state that when the rhizosphere is not disturbed, it has a lot more time to settle into to establish a functional soil food web. So that's really beneficial. These new homes, even though the topsoil could still be there, it's not on top anymore. So when it's displaced like that, it's just not going to function as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we want to do this. We don't want to do. I guess we're going to get into soil tests a little bit deeper. So I'm going to jump ahead to what time of year do you receive the most cancel requests? I think, coming from a service lawn care industry background, that was one of the things that we missed opportunities on very, very frequently, in the beginning stages. We weren't paying attention to the cancel requests and really digging into why are these customers canceling and where are our opportunities. So Rob, I hate to keep throwing this back at you, but I know you had more experience with cancel requests.
I'll tell you, the key on the cancel request was, for me, actually having a time frame and a specific set of reports set up that I was going to check every single month. And I was looking for trends. And that, when you do that and you don't let time slip by, that can tell you a lot. And I think we'll get into it more, but that was really the key for me. Similar to like keeping a log of what results you see. What's the response from your customer base? Especially customers that are canceling. I mean, the whole name of the game is net growth in lawn care. And if you're not paying attention to what the customers are saying, especially customers that are at the point where they're going to cancel a service, even for cancel requests, not just cancel service, why are we getting those calls in? Because I think every single person that's probably on this call right now would sign up for, I would love to get referrals, and I don't want any phone calls that are complaints. That's everybody would be in lawn care if that was the case. So the more you record that information and the more you pay attention to it, the more you can reduce it and make it go in a trend that you like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, you know, that, you know, chasing referrals, when's the best time of year to chase referrals? You know, when, do you wait until midstream, or do you, you know, go, you know, at the end of the season? You know, I have some helpful tips later on in the presentation that I made notes of to offer you guys how to really build up that referral base, and I'll get into that. I think we're going to do a poll right now. If that's the next slide.
Learn a little bit of something about the audience that we have.
Yeah. Make sure you guys are still awake.
It says, are you currently using Holganix? You get to select one of the following: yes, no, or interested in using. Once you select one of those, just hit submit, and we'll see what we got. Looks like 77% of the people have voted so far. Let's get that up there so we can prove Brian wrong that everybody's not sleeping.
We got 95% of the people that registered or responded.
All right, let's let it rip.
Are you currently
using Holganix? So 53% yes, 42% no, 5% interested in using. So it doesn't matter if you're using Holganix right now or not, or if you're using one or two of the products and not all of them. This is all about building a program, no matter what style of program you have.
Absolutely.
So we're specifically right back into what worked and didn't work during the season, and like really getting into the details of that.
Yeah. So we want to look at you know, what was good, what was beneficial to us during the 2020 season. The products, you know, anywhere from the products that we used.
So you think, I mean, we always think about the agronomic aspects of it. You know, are the products working? Are they working the way that they're supposed to be? I really like the second question because I think that you can make more of a difference there. Because, you know, yes, we are a manufacturer of products, but before Brian and I both worked at Holganix, we both ran lawn care companies. So I can tell you that when you're trying to make a difference on the results that you're getting, typically you can have a more immediate impact on the production and training aspects. So, you know, do you wish you had a better training program? Is your onboarding process quick enough because, you know, you're hiring people in the spring and, you know, maybe they're not up to speed quick enough. Maybe they can't identify problems before customers are identifying them. So you want to make sure that you have something. I mean, now is the time where you get to create your wish list of, you know, these are all the things that we didn't do last year that we want to make sure that we do next year. And they don't have to be earth shattering things. It can be, hey, I just want to make sure that we take an hour at the beginning of each application where we're going to specifically train on, you know, the key success points of, you know, the application that's coming up. It could be something that simple. Depends on what you were doing and where you want to go. The other thing that I like to do is look at the best and worst results, application and by route. So from my experience, the reason you're looking route by route is because each technician is different. And sometimes your soil types, your lawn types, the amount of trees, different things like that are different based on the route. So you don't want to assume that your program is not working in one area just because, hey, maybe it's just a heavily shaded area. You know, if you have a subdivision of a zip code that's just not performing as well, the grass isn't as thick there. You know, you have to take that into account. The other thing is that when you're looking at the applications by route, there are subtle differences that over time are going to show up with a technician. Like, are they outlining the perimeter of the lawns every single time that they're doing? Or are they just moving right into their regular patterned application? You know, something like that will show up, you know, 4 months later when you have crabgrass breakthrough and you realize that there's not enough of an overlap with your pre-emergent along the edges. But is that because of, you know, the heat in a certain area? So I always look at it by application, by route, and tended to get a lot of information that way. And it's easier to train one-on-one and just make those little tweaks like, hey, regardless of how you're doing it, this is the application the result from the application that's happening. So even though you may be doing it correctly, we want to make sure that we make this adjustment on your route specifically. So when you are taking all that information in, it does help you to formulate a program that's going to work for all those routes, even though you may have those subtle differences no matter what you do.
Yeah, and I think something that I implemented when I was kind of running this on the lawn care side was coming up with a toolbox. I think a toolbox of tools is very important, and I would usually do it towards the end of the season, and really revisit this and look, like, hey, what do I need to do from a production training perspective? Were you overusing product? I revisited the budget. I looked at different things. Hey, was I training the guys? Did we have a system in place to make sure that the machines were calibrated? Were we looking at that so we're not over applying or under applying, which could cause, issues with the budget on both sides, whether it's service calls or overusing product, and then potentially, damaging turf and plant material. And then look at the best, worst results by application and route, like Rob was saying. I think a good metric would be and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, Rob, but the net promoter score. Can you just share that kind of tool with them?
Yeah, an NPS is helpful just on your customers anonymously rating your service, whether it's the customer service aspect of it, the production that's actually done. It tends to give you a really good feedback, and you always want to be moving in an upward trend. And you can do it on an annual basis, quarterly basis, whatever you see fit. It depends on how you're willing to make adjustments. But the NPS score is something that's really helpful.
Yeah,
you could just Google it and find it.
Yeah, I think it's a good tool to have to see whether or not you're dealing with a production/training issue, or it pretty much alleviates or deciphers, goes through all this stuff.
Yep.
What applications have provided the best results in the past? If it's not broken, don't fix it. Build on it or around it. It's an old saying that I go by. I mean, hey, how can we take what we have, take the core of what we have, and build it better instead of tearing it completely down? And so that's what we're looking to do. Some of our flagship product at Holganix is a soil builder. A lot of people, when they hear Holganix, they maybe something I should have mentioned. Everyone automatically assumes that Holganix is an organic company. I don't know how many times I've heard that. And although we can build you an organic program, and we have no issues doing that, we're kind of taking the synthetic approach and melding it with the organic approach. So it's more of a hybrid. I just wanted to make that clear. If there's there are a lot of misconception, out there that we're strictly organic, but we are a hybrid style, company. We can go either way. So that's all we're trying to do, is build to your program, with Holganix. Introduce soil builders, introduce, lessen your inputs, and just make a whole holistic program for you. Bad applications can be because of products, application method, done kind of like I was talking about, machines not being calibrated, over mixing, under mixing.
I think it's important because you don't want to just take a customer's response at face value. You got to dig into it a little bit more and make sure you know where that result is coming from.
Yeah. And a lot of the times the issue that you're facing today, what I've learned, doesn't come from that application that you're doing that round. It comes from previous rounds. Something wasn't done or something was overdone, and so it's going to create more problems. It's kind of a trickle down effect. So you need to go back in and kind of do some recon work from that angle to figure out, okay, what did we mess something up? What happened? Or, from a positive, standpoint, why is everything looking good? Let's research this. Let's keep doing what we're doing, and let's make notes. I think documentation of and recognizing that is a very important aspect to this business. If you're just out there, in go mode all the time, you don't have that foundation.
Yeah, something I think we could steal from all the superintendents of really high end courses that we've worked with is they collect data on every application, and they have binders and binders of data just from previous years, so that they know what's worked in the past and what hasn't. And when you think about a program, I always like the analogy of this is like a boxing match. You have Mother Nature on one side, you're on the other side. So you can prepare for it. You can use your past experience, but there's always going to be punch and counter punch. You just got to know, you don't want the counter punch to be the first time that you've ever thrown it or ever thought about it. You want to make sure that you understand, like, all right, if this is going to happen, if we're going to go into a drought situation, here's my counterpunch. If we're going to get an extreme amount of rain, here's my counterpunch. And going to the last point on the slide, because it's a fluid process. You're constantly evolving throughout each season and building on, from the previous year's experience.
No, absolutely. And again, I'm just going to throw in some tools, there. Utilizing extension offices, communicating with other people in the field, connections, kind of networking is going to help you build on your knowledge base as well. And I think it's a good thing that everyone talk, in the field. Get a better view of what's happening in the market, and it's helpful for everyone. So going into proactive changes to your program, again, what can you do proactively to change your program? Looking at the weather, sometimes we're going to have, spring that comes in and hits us hard, tons of rain. And sometimes we're going to be going through droughts. Just paying attention to the weather and being able to pull audibles when necessary. Not only to get the timing of the application out and keep your customer base happy, but also get the product down at the correct timing. And it's not always going to happen. I think we all know that. There's going to be breakthrough on crabgrass, on weeds, and some of that's uncontrollable. But you just do the best we can, right? Utilizing extension offices, they have a lot of knowledge. In the local areas. Rob, I think you have a little bit more knowledge based around that. I just think it's a good tool.
I'll tell you, there's specific reasons that I would use an extension office. I'll give you one from a few years back. Army worms were kind of infiltrating the area, and I know I mentioned that before, but it's such a good example. If you understand the migration patterns, just because it's not your extension office doesn't mean you can't call them. So, based on where we are in the Northeast, we have two different migration patterns. So I would contact the extension offices first in North Carolina, and then I would also contact in Tennessee, because we were where the two migration patterns would join up. But I would know based on the timing, if they had an issue with it, then it was coming our way. So that helped me get product in the door so that I could, and gave me time to inform customers. So that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. You want to build a network and you want to be strategic about it. It's if you think that you don't have time to make 2 or 3 phone calls at a specific point in the year, and you just set a reminder on your phone, believe me, that is a much better alternative than making a dozen phone calls trying to get an insecticide that is going to be in high demand and overpriced at that point in time, in order to just be able to take care of your customers. That's just one example, but that's how that network can really assist you.
Yeah, and utilizing consultant vendors, anyone that's out there that you can utilize, I would highly suggest it. I mean, you have two sets of eyes instead of one, and in this case, it's going to be a ton of people seeing what's going on, and that communication is going to alleviate. Most likely or potentially alleviate, some issues that were unforeseen, by yourself. And then soil tests. Did you conduct soil tests? Traditionally we just are looking at NPK. We're not looking at the micronutrients. We want to make sure that we're taking those. We're going to dig a little bit more into the soil tests, I think, here in the next slide or two.
I think it's important to pay attention to what kind of soil test you're getting, and understanding you can't just take a soil test at face value. And this is something that I wish I would have known when I was actually out there managing a group of people that were treating lawns. We would look at a soil test and be like, all right, so we're deficient in potassium. We need to add potassium. There is another layer to this when you measure the biological activity, that we get more information on a soil test now than what I used to get. But you want to make sure that you're not only seeing the synthetic, the macronutrients, the micronutrients, but also the biological activity in there, your CEC, different things like that, because you want to make sure that you get that full picture. You could have plenty of nutrients in the soil and they're not in a usable form for the plants. So you're reading that your nitrogen's high, but you're not seeing the green up that you want. Well, that could just be because that nitrogen is sitting in the soil and not getting converted into a usable food source for the plant. So, soil testing is good in general. Make sure that you are getting the full picture when you select soil test.
Just some notes on it. Test at least 10 of your properties. I would suggest taking different properties, not isolating them to one street, but maybe going over, a larger geographic location, just to get a larger view of a little bit more accurate view of what's going on, and that's going to help you with your agronomic side. Again, varied locations and quality of property. Don't, like we were talking about earlier, I wouldn't go just to like a new build site, new HOA, that was 5 years old. I would mix it up between the two. It's just going to give you a broader view of what maybe something that can be corrected on your end, or just a little bit more accurate picture, and then make adjustments for early rounds to ensure results through the rest of the year.
You want to do about 80% of your soil tests in the first 2 rounds, because then it gives you some time to make adjustments in the soil with later applications. And by the time you get through the summer, typically it can be smooth sailing at that point.
Yep. And it cancels. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Pull a cancel report by month is a very useful tool and suggestion. Cancel requests will have multiple reasons. If you want to utilize the tool of using the customers to report back to you, that's a good option for you. That is the Net Promoter Score suggestion. And then if you identify a high cancel request time period, look to see what was ahead of that. Again, it's probably not what's going on during that round is why they canceled. It's something that happened prior, probably 2 rounds back, possibly the round before. Again, employee training, what's going on agronomic wise. And I think looking at route by route, if you're running multiple trucks and multiple guys out there, that's going to give you an idea, where are these cancel reports coming from? Are they coming from, Tommy? Why is it Ricky having, cancels? So it kind of helps you pinpoint what you need to target and what you need to focus on to identify. So always check the reports by route. Some guy could be going home playing Super Nintendo when he should be out working. I actually had that happen to me. So the process.
So really simple. We focus on the nutrients, the weed controls, missing soil components, what seasonal pressures you're facing, the application methods, and the budget. So we're going to dive into each one of these. But this is the order in which, aside from the budget, I think you create a budget separately, and we'll get into that. But this is kind of the order in which you go through it. And remember, you have multiple programs running at the same time. Just because you are combining them into applications, your nutrient program and your weed control program are really 2 separate things. They're running on 2 separate schedules. You're trying to overlap in an efficient way to make sure that everyone's getting what they need on their property, for example. So let's just jump right into nutrients, and we can hit the details of this.
Yeah. And like we said, I'm more than happy to help you or direct you to to the rep in your area and work with you on building the program. So nutrients, what's the total target for nutrient levels, NPK and micros. So below it's going to be an example, 3.5, 0.5, 1.2, and 0.07 pounds, and that's per 1,000 annually. So we're going to split that up accordingly, throughout the season. Might be a little bit heavier in the springtime on the end, and then back off in the summertime, when disease starts setting in, or when it's about to set in, or be more prevalent. And then
I've done this in 2 different ways, by the way. So I've done this where I use the total amount annually and then figure out how I'm going to allocate that per application. I've also gone through and just said, all right, this is what I think is needed in every application at these times of the year. Checked what the total amount was. And if it seemed like it was off in one direction or another, then I could look at how I already had it allocated and make adjustments. So either way works. Just make sure that you're double checking the total amount that you're going to use annually, so that you're not, 1, going to blow up your budget, and 2, that it's agronomically responsible. Even though it seems like, oh yeah, I should put 3/4 pound to end down in, all these different applications that one may not be needed. It may not be responsible to do it that way. But you may not get the scope of it if you don't look at it application by application and in your total annual view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another factor to consider, I think, Rob, is going to be, are you using biologicals to aid in solubilization of the N and the P and the K? Is that playing a role to where you can actually reduce those numbers a little bit, depending on your region?
Yeah, a 3.5 is really a synthetic number. I mean, when I typically write a program, or I shouldn't say write a program, when I rewrite a program, because we're always taking what someone has and what they've been, successful with in their area and tweaking that. We're not starting from scratch, but 3.5 is a synthetic number. And when we rewrite it with biologicals included, typically we're around 1.75 to 2.25 within the first season. So to Brian's point, you can see how the biological activity can convert so many more nutrients so quickly that you're really going to reduce some of the need there.
Yeah, and I've always been a big proponent of liquid fertilizers. They're cheaper, quicker response time, to the plant material, quicker uptake. You don't have to depend on the homeowner watering it in. You don't have to depend on Mother Nature if they don't have irrigation. So I think liquid fertilizers, I'm definitely a little bit more. I lean on liquid fertilizers more, but I'm absolutely, if you want to go full granular, we can do that. We have great granular products that are out there that I can get you more information on.
I love liquid as well. I love, when I was talking about the counter punching, that's why I like liquid, because liquid, you can switch that quicker and be more reactionary, so that you can, really not have to wait to address a problem.
Yeah, definitely key at pulling audibles, throughout the season. And then look at your nutrient source. I mean, there's some really good products out there, and then there's some products out there that are just cheap. They're cheap for a reason. Urea, it's cheap. That's great, but it's a super fast breakdown, very high burn potential. There's methylated urea. It's gradual feeding. It's fast, medium, and slow chain breakdown. So you're getting our Blue Sky 2100 or 3000 Nitro, for example, it's going to give you a 60% slow and a 40% available. So you're going to get some fast for the green up. But then, you have the different chains that are going to break down as the fast, goes away, the medium's going to kick in, and then the slow.
And to that point, you got to make sure that you understand what your slow release mechanism is. So Are you using something that is going to stunt biological activity so that it won't convert the nitrogen into a usable food source as fast? Because it's going to take a long time to regain that biological activity. Or can you use a natural nitrogen source that is going to just release slower, and you don't have to affect that biological activity, because you never know when you're going to need a quick green up, when you're going to need that response. There's a couple things that we know homeowners love. They love being the first lawn that's green in the spring. They love being the last lawn that's green in the spring. Well, if you are reducing some of your advantages with the biology that's in the soil because of the slow release mechanism, you're really you're trying to counterpunch with one hand tied behind your back, and that can get really difficult.
Yeah, and an important note, without taking too much longer on this slide, is 50% of the nutrients that we put in the soil actually get utilized. They're made available to the plant, and that's because we don't have that ecosystem, in the soil to solubilize, to release it. It's a very, very detailed process that happens with the bacteria and the amoeba and the protozoa, releasing it to the plant, making it available. And a lot of people aren't aware of that, but once you kind of get a little bit more granular, so to speak, on how everything's functioning in the soil, it's really amazing. And that's what got me interested. That's what hooked me on this job, was I never knew to get that small and microscopic, and everything that happens at that level is it's mind blowing to me. But making everything more efficient is definitely key. So weed control, Rob, you are the master at weed control. So
that's fine.
I never had problems with callbacks or weed control. I'm kidding.
So I think we can all relate to getting callbacks for weeds. But a couple of things to focus on. What are you controlling? Make sure that you're specific about that. I can understand going out in the spring when there's first weed activity and doing something like a standard 3-way to get kind of a broad spectrum control. But you want to, one of the things is I like doing several blanket applications rather than spot treating all the time. I can think back to my perspective of when I was actually a technician and thinking that I was doing the best job I could possibly do. And I'm spot treating everything, but you're only spot treating what you can spot. You can't possibly spot all the weeds that haven't emerged yet, that are underneath or within the turf layer. So even if you try and do outside that area, look, your job is to take care of that whole property. Make sure that a few of those times that you're taking care of that whole property, and I think what you're going to find is you're going to get less callbacks. You're going to end up using less weed control because you're going to spot treat and spot treat and spot treat, and you'll never be done spot treating because you just couldn't get some of the stuff that you couldn't see under control. So the liquid weed control always works better. It's just a faster response. It translocates faster through the plant. So I think that, that's really a simple way to think about it. Overlap the area that you think that you have to do, overlap the timing that you think you have to do, and you'll find out that you actually use less weed control over the entire season.
All right, moving on. We're almost done here, guys. Thank you so much for hanging in with us. Soil components, soil pH level, very important. Very, a lot of different ways that we can help the soil pH. I think an important key, I'm going to keep bringing up the soil biology, because with soil biology, if you have the right populations and the diverse populations of bacteria and fungi, actively working in the soil, that's going to help keep that pH in check. It's not going to correct it overnight. It's not a silver bullet, but it's going to help maintain that ecosystem that we're trying to build. There are different ways, obviously, dolomitic lime. There's so many new sources of lime out there. What is it? The high cal lime. I think that's a quicker impact than the dolomitic. The solucal lime, I think, is another one. Very expensive, really fast acting. But so many options to correct the pH, depending on where you're at. And then you go down, different parts of the southern U.S., different regions, and you're going to run into, needs for sulfur. Kind of came up with a new product for Texas that's going to be coming out that I had to include sulfur. So just depending on, kind of what your needs are for the soil. If your soil tests indicate too much acidity, obviously we need to increase the alkalinity. And then your CECs, I call it cation. Some people call it cation.
Cation.
Yeah, cation. Yeah. It's the ability of the soil to hold or store cations. Sorry.
I've heard it both ways too, so you're not necessarily wrong.
So, Barrett, our CEO and founder, he used a really good analogy that I'm going to steal. He said it's kind of like when you have a pantry and you're making your pantry bigger. This is a non-scientific analogy, but you make a bigger pantry so you're able to store more food in that pantry, so that when a pandemic or something comes around, you're prepared. You're prepared to survive through that. So that's kind of the analogy of, we want to increase that exchange capacity to hold and store more. Seasonal pressures. This is going to vary depending on what part of the what region you're in. Down south, you're going to have more humidity. Up north, you're probably not going to have as big of breakouts and severe breakouts. But it's ultimately coming up with an IPM plan ahead of time. It's being, again, proactive, what to expect, and being responsible with your inputs that are going down. I don't know how many times I've seen guys, panic because they're gonna, customers are, upset that their lawns are looking kind of bad in the summertime, and so they go and hit it with a ton of nitrogen. which only, this is going right into disease season. It's 4 or 5 weeks prior to, and what that does is it just pushes that disease so hard. So being proactive, making sure you're taking preventative measures, and having just a good solid IPM in place.
Really the key is, knowing what pressures you're probably going to face and having some plan, on backup.
Yeah. And then, what we control, what you use and when. Well, we need to know, what we're dealing with. I think, touching back on the training aspect, a lot of things that are overlooked is weed identification, identification of insects, identification of disease. A lot of the guys out in the field don't know how to do it. I was one of those guys at one point. And I think having that knowledge increases your productivity. It increases or decreases, I should say, your cancels. You're going to have happier customers. It decreases your callbacks. So again, just being proactive, building up your root system and having a deep root system, I think is part of that IPM. I mean, because drought, it's a climate issue. We're not getting rain. You're not allowed to water. So making sure that you're focusing on the soil, building up that root system, having a deep web-like root structure, turf is going to hold up a lot better than a shallow 2-inch, root system. If you have still have better lawns than your competitors, then you will still have customers.
Yeah.
And also creates selling opportunities. You want to touch on that, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, like if similar to knowing what your production process is going to be, in case you have one of these pressures, also know what opportunities can be there as well. Just because you're taking care of a lawn doesn't mean that you have to do everything at the cost that was, for the program. Sometimes there's things outside of the program. If you're not in a reactionary mode, then you can say, all right, well, it's time for us to implement this email that has to go out and create this opportunity so that we can do these applications at the correct time to fix this problem. So giving people the opportunity to opt in or opt out for a problem that's happening when it's happening, not after it's run its course, is important. That's part of your job. It's not just, setting up a program and doing the applications. It's, informing people, educating people, helping them make good decisions along the way so that, you're their consultant through this whole process. The chances of you being right on the first try are slim and none. So make sure that you have not only the production, but the sales and informative process in place for when something like this happens.
Application methods, what equipment, are you using the Z sprays? Are you pulling hose? And that's going to play into, liquid. Are you doing granular versus both? Are you, what's your spray volume? Rob, I'm going to hand this one off to you too. I'm sorry, man.
First of all, I love that the picture is a lawnmower and none of anything that we're talking about. So.
I know. I just,
awesome.
I don't know what happened with the Z spray.
So a couple of things. There's no right or wrong answer on this. I think that, the equipment that you use has to play into your business model. A couple factors there. What type of vehicles are you running? What type of lawns are you taking care of? What type of employees are you employing? They all play a factor in what type of equipment that you're going to use. What type of employee turnover do you want? The liquid versus granular versus both. We've kind of spoke about, our love of liquid, but there is definitely a time and place for granular. A lot of times you'll see granular get used on the front end and tail end of a program because of weather conditions. You may have a lot of leaf drop and it's easier to just do a granular application because it's eventually going to get into the soil anyway. Liquid, you want to have that liquid focus because if you're pairing it with a weed control, you just know it's going to work better. And when it comes to the spray volume, I think that, you have to be a little bit more specific on this. I mean, my preference is that I want to be at 1.5 to 2 gallons per thousand, because I just found that's kind of the sweet spot of getting the best results, having the least amount of drift and carrying the least amount of volume that I can, because, I want to go out there and produce, a decent dollar amount every single day. And I can't have my liquid volume, my overall liquid volume for the day be the reason that I'm going to stop working. So yeah, you want to weigh out all those things, but make sure that when you're designing your program, you're keeping that in the back of your mind. You know, is this the right application method for us to use, given the employees that we have and the customer base that we have? For example, back in the day when we had 9 different locations, the answer was not the same for each application. So we covered the Philadelphia market, we covered the Baltimore market, and we covered the DC market. Well, the lawn size has changed, the obstacles changed, the parking situations changed. So we found that we could be more productive with pull hoses in a lot of those areas rather than using Z-sprays, which we were using like crazy. And we swore by them because in the Pennsylvania suburbs, where we were average 3/4 acre lots, they were fantastic. But when all of a sudden that shifted and our average lawn size was 6,500 square feet, all of a sudden pull hose was the way to go. It was easier to maneuver around the tight areas. By the time we unloaded a Z-spray, got the Z-spray prepared with product and got it on the lawn, somebody with a pull hose was done already. So, you know, that's, you want to make sure that you consider that stuff and then make sure that the program is complementary of the equipment that you're using.
Yeah, and just 2 things if I can touch on them. So when you are pulling hose, something to look out for, you know, just Brian's tip of the day. You know, when guys slow down, I mean, they get tired, they wear it, and as the day wears on, you know, they slow down, their pace slows down. So you could run into an issue where you know, in the beginning of the day, they're getting down the right amounts, and then if you start running into, you know, some issues, that might be something to kind of look at. And then spray volume, if you're using any biologicals, like Rob said, at one point, I think he said 1.5 to 2. I think I'm like at 1.75, you know, GPNs. But if you're using biologicals, it's very important to have a higher spray volume, because that's going to help carry those microbes past the canopy of the grass into the soil where they need to be. Just another helpful.
Although I will say that I only ran into a problem when it was 1 or lower on the spray volume with the biologicals.
Yeah, I've gone all the way to 1 and haven't had an issue. Anything below that, I think you might be pushing it a little bit too hard.
Yeah.
And then budget. You know, I don't think budget should be, when you're designing your program, when you're creating your program, have an amount, you know, whether it's per round or annually for the entire season, with your budget. Don't design your program around your budget. I think it should be, like Rob said in the beginning, it should be 2 separate things that you're dealing with. Design your program, see what it looks like, and then fit that program into your budget. And you know, factor in service calls. They're a part of your budget. It's gonna, you know, we're gonna get service calls no matter what we do. Nobody's gonna stay, you know, happy. They're, you know, one of the tools. Rob, can you jump in here real quick?
Yeah, I'll tell you that I have a specific example that just came last year with a company that I was working with, and they were insistent on how good their program was, but they just wanted to see if they could tweak it. So we kind of dove into it a little bit more around the cost of the program, and they were very proud that their COGS was at 14%. And I was like, all right, that's great. What are your cancels at? What are your service calls at? And when we figured that out, they had a pretty hefty trade-off of about 20% of their customers each season. And my thought is, like, you're going to pay for it at one point in time or another. Would you rather be in the business of finding new customers, or would you rather be in the business of maintaining and keeping your customers? I would go to the latter, specifically because you can get a whole lot more business based off of referrals of the current customer base for a lot cheaper than you can get the turnover recovered and and your growth covered with, you know, an acquisition cost in your selling season. So you want to make sure that your cancels, your service calls are figured into that, because you're going to pay for it at one time or another. And if you think that you're doing really fantastic with your COGS, you may not realize what you're sacrificing. To Brian's other point, when you're working on the budget and the agronomic program, you want to do it separately. You don't want to create your agronomic program and your budget at the same time. You want to create your agronomic program and then adjust it based on the budget. So if you tend to do them at the same time, you don't typically get what you want. And at least if you do your full agronomic program and create the ideal scenario for what you're looking at based on all the information that you had before, everything that we've been going over, this is what the ideal looks like. Now here's what my budget is. Where do I think this is going to come in at? And then you know, all right, I just adjusted it here. I have to pay special attention to where I just adjusted it, because if there's going to be a problem, I think it's going to be there. And that's when you make sure, all right, that's where I'm going to have a plan B and a plan C. And hopefully I don't need to use them, but I know the rest of it is the ideal scenario. I'm not going to have service calls. I'm not going to have cancels. And it's also a matter of like weighting that, agronomic value within the program. When we were talking about cancels before, this is, where I typically see the most cancels. I got to look ahead of that and make sure that I don't have the same problem again.
Yeah. And, I think we're going to go ahead and just kind of recap. I appreciate you guys staying on. I know we're running a little bit long. So basically, just kind of recap, we want to investigate, soil samples, history, cancel, sales. One thing I did want to bring up, we have a very good blog on our website, Holganix.com. It's called the Golden Street Strategy. It basically helps with, it's a very good write-up on how to prioritize those service calls when they come in. I think it's a good tool for you guys to check out, and it could potentially help with cancels. We want to plan ahead, nutrients, weed controls, missing soil components, seasonal pressures, just be proactive, research what was done, what's ahead of us, and what we're looking forward to. And I think by, getting a jump this early, is a good thing. And then build an order, soil, what does the soil need, nutrients, what nutrients, can we provide, to the plant material, and then weed controls and any additional needs, your fungicides, any other insecticides that you may need.
I would say as a little bit of a cheat code, if you're going to take a picture of any screen that we've gone through this entire time, take a picture of this one and use it as a reference, and just do your own version of this. But if you go through it, making sure that you hit on these points in this order, then you're going to end up with a pretty solid program.
And that brings us to the end. So yeah, we are here to help you. Below, you're going to find my contact information. I'm not sure why the office number is up there, why I didn't put my number, but more than happy to email me and we can exchange information. I did notice that there's some current customers, Holganix users on here. I just want to let you know our prepay and for the new customers, this could help you with your budget for 2024. We have a prepay offer. It can send you that info if you contact me. Again, thank you very much for attending, being patient with me, and I hope everyone has a very, very, very successful 2024 season coming up.
So Brian, we got a couple questions.
So
I'm going to let you take the first one. It says, how do you guys increase the spray rate on a Z spray?
How do you increase the spray rate?
Yep.
Well, I mean, there's a few different ways, nozzles or different pump. So I
would actually say both. So yeah, the most common way I see is that you switch the pump and switch the volume of the nozzle. And they do, I don't know if they still have that conversion kit for the auxiliary tank or the extra tank to increase the volume. But that did exist at one point. And I can tell you that it took about 90 minutes to do the full conversion over to liquid to increase that spray rate. Yeah.
And you're limited on your capacity. I can't remember. I think the most that I've ever seen one of those is about 65 gallons with the auxiliary tank. And I could be lying there, but you're limited definitely on your spray rate. So it's going to limit you. Obviously you're not going to go out and want to do 10 acres. That's going to take you a while, a lot of refills. But if you contact me, we can definitely come up with a solution that would work. To handle that.
Yeah, it's I've probably coached, 20, 30 people through that conversion. Here's another question. Are there plans for a customer portal as opposed to the retail site that requests your information to view anything? Also, should all stock orders continue to come through you directly, Brian? So I'll answer the first part of that. Well, actually, I can answer both parts of that. Anytime that you want to place an order through Brian, that's 100% fine. We are in the process of converting our systems right now, which we're kind of at the tail end of that process, which you will have a customer portal and you will be able to place orders directly into the system, and they will go straight into manufacturing and shipping. So it is being improved, and it's really, as soon as that is able to roll out, you will be notified. But anytime that you want to contact myself, Brian, any of the reps to place an order, we are happy to assist, and we will also make sure that whether it goes through the new portal or comes to us, we'll have visibility of it and be able to make sure that everything goes through exactly as planned.
Yeah, and if there's a distributor, on the ground in your region that that's up and running for us, I think, we can absolutely go that direction too. So just to make it as convenient as possible for you guys, whatever has to happen, whether it's direct or whether it's through a distributor, I can absolutely help you and direct you to the best option.
The last question was, do you sell products through Site One? Well, we have not in the past. That doesn't mean we won't in the future. We were just, with our type of products, we really focus a lot on the training at the distributor level, and making sure that we don't have guys just pushing product, that they're actually providing an education and the right solution for you. So I think that possibly when it comes to some of our granular solutions, that could happen. But if you have a question of what's available in your area, I would contact Brian, and he's going to know what distributors carry what, and what the most helpful distributor is going to be that you can go through, given the market that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I believe that wraps it up, Brian.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, again, I just want to thank everyone. I know, we went over a little bit longer than we anticipated, but thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great holiday season, and I look forward to speaking with each and every one of you.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thank you all.